Greetings, YouTube and fellow traditionalist Catholics. This is Sergio Becerra II, and welcome back to my channel. And today we are returning back to the Borgia Chronicles. Now we start off with part 3 on the papacy of Pope Callixtus III, the first Borgia Pope, and who was also the first Spanish Pope. So we left off in the last video in part 2 that the Pope has finally launched a crusade to get back Constantinople. He's already made 2 of his nephews, plus a Portuguese prince as cardinals, and of course, one of the cardinals, as I've already mentioned, as we all know, the future Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia. So, as I finished off, as I left off towards the end of the last video, plague had broken out in Rome. The Pope stayed behind with some of the cardinals. I think one, even though some have fled. But he finally published the names of his nephews and the Portuguese prince that he appointed as cardinals, which gave him the opportunity, even though he had threatened the cardinals with excommunication if word got out. So, we're here on page 62, but before we go anywhere else, I wanted to read this highlighted paragraph, and it's the Papal States. Okay. So I'm going to read this right here back on page 61, and it will continue on page 62. The Papal States. When Emperor Constantine moved his capital from Rome to Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul in Turkey, in AD 30, he made a clear distinction between his own secular power and the spiritual authority of the Pope, who remained in Rome. The collapse of the Roman Empire in the West in the 5th century, however, left Rome unprotected, determined to retain its independence. The papacy discovered the donation of Constantine, a document purporting to give Rome the right to rule territory in Italy. The papacy and the Holy Roman Empire, embracing much of Central Europe, waged a long struggle for control of the peninsula, which came to an end in the decades around 1100. While many prosperous mercantile cities, such as Florence and Siena, won their independence, the papacy established its authority over much of central Italy. The Papal States were bordered to the north by the papal fief of Fief. I don't know how to spell this word. F-I-E-F. Fief of Ferrara and the imperial fief of Milan, and to the south by the Kingdom of Naples, another papal fief. The states themselves varied from prosperous cities, such as Bologna and Perugia. The states themselves varied from prosperous cities, such as Bologna and Perugia, 2 tiny hilltop fortresses in the Apennines, such as Narni. Some were ruled directly from Rome by governors appointed by the Pope, others were quasi-autonomous, ruled by vicars who were granted the states as papal fiefs. So the papacy, for many centuries, had control of central Italy, known as the Papal States, therefore had control of a lot of different territories and cities. So it's just like, so you got like, let's see, the Romagna, I think Tuscany as well, to the north, and then you got Naples to the south. So central Italy, the Vatican had control of back then, but not anymore. Now the Vatican is just a one city state in Rome, an independent state. So here we are, back to page 62. The Pope had been in bed with gout, fearing he would die. Well, even though there was a outbreak of plague going on. So here we are. On 17 November, in a public consistory, Callixtus III gave red hats, bestowing cardinalships on his nephews and investing them with their tutelar churches. His own title of Sancti Quarto Coronati to Luis Juan de Milla and San Nicola in Carcare to Rodrigo. The Pope persuaded the College of Cardinals to allow him to create 6 more cardinals on 17 December. So now with the investiture of his nephews as cardinals, he's now asking the College of Cardinals to allow him to create 6 more cardinals. So looks like so let's see what happens. The Pope persuaded the College of Cardinals to allow him to create 6 more cardinals. So it looks like he persuaded them, and now he's going to get 6 more. On 17 December, as one of them, Ina Silvio Piccolomini punningly remarked, Never before had it been so hard for a cardinal to enter the sacred college. The door hinges were so rusty they would not move, and the Pope had to employ a battering ram and other sorts of war machines to break down the door. So you had someone in the room you have someone here, Ina Piccolomini, a member of the House of Piccolomini, which Popes Pius II and Pius III are from. And what he's saying here, never before had it been so hard for a cardinal to enter the sacred college. Okay, so you had the door hinges were so rusty they would not move. So okay, so entering the sacred college, the door. So when entering the sacred college, looks like there were some issues with the doors while getting in, and they needed like battering rams and other war machines to other tools to open the door. I mean, St. Peter's was already the old St. Peter's Basilica was already falling apart. And that basilica had been around since the time of Constantine, so that's like over a century. Or, I mean, not over a century, over a millennium old. And of course, a new one doesn't get built till like later in the early 16th century under Julius II. So let me finish. Let me repeat this. We're so rusty they would not move, and the Pope had to employ a battering ram and other sorts of war machines to break down the door. So the Pope had to get people to had to employ people to get a battering ram or whatever to get the doors down, just to get people in the college. Piccolomini's creation had been requested by Emperor Frederick III, and there were candidates proposed by the Duke of Milan and Charles VII, the King of France. In an attempt to improve his relationship with Alfonso V, in an attempt to improve his relationship with Alfonso of Naples, Callixtus III also gave a red hat to the uncle of Alfonso's beloved mistress, Lucrezia di Alagno. When Lucrezia was in Rome during December, reputedly with a retinue that was as grand as if she were indeed queen, Callixtus deliberately honored his old patron by receiving her publicly in consistory, to the distaste of many in the College of Cardinals. So you got where it says here, Callixtus III also gave a red hat to the uncle of Alfonso's beloved mistress. Okay, so the king had a mistress. Name is Lucrezia di Alagno. Of course, Alexander VI also had a daughter named Lucrezia Borgia. Yeah, but this is the uncle of Alfonso's mistress, who gets a red hat and becomes cardinal. Callixtus deliberately honored his old patron by receiving her publicly in consistory. So you got Alfonso's mistress being welcomed by the Pope in consistory to the distaste of many in the College of Cardinals. So he got the mistress of his old patron in St. Peter's, and the Cardinals are not happy to have her just within the college itself. Okay, so I'm going to read this highlighted paragraph right here. A profusion of cardinals. It was absent, which some call the election. It was absent, which I'm sorry, let me read this again. It was absent, which some call the it was absent, which some call the election season for cardinals, and there was a bitter argument in consistory because the Pope wanted to create cardinals, but he was opposed by the college. First, they argued that there were too many cardinals already, and then poured scorn on the man he nominated, arguing vo- arguing vociferously against all of them. Callixtus, however, got the better of the college, especially thanks to the vigorous assistance of those three cardinals he had already created. It made it clear to the college that he was in charge, as was fitting. So the Pope wanted to create more cardinals, but the college is telling him no. But still, he got his way. Okay, so I want to read this paragraph on the very bottom of page 62 because there's a picture right here of Pope Callixtus creating new cardinals, and there's one in particular. Callixtus III gives the red hat to Cardinal Piccolomini. The receiving of the red hat was the first of a series of rituals that took place over several days or weeks to mark a cardinal's official appointment. After receiving his hat, the new cardinal formally visited all the other members of the college before attending a ceremony at which his month was closed. At his next meeting with the Pope, his mouth was opened, and he was given a ring and the name of his tutelar church in Rome. It was only after all these ceremonies had been completed that he could finally take part in the government of the church. The painting is one of Pinturicchio's 10 scenes depicting the life of Pius II, Ina Silvio Piccolomini, which were commissioned in 1502. Okay, so the future Pope Pius II, Ina Silvio Piccolomini, future Pope Pius II, is finally made cardinal. And here's the picture right here. So there's Pope Callixtus giving Cardinal Piccolomini, the future Pius II, his red hat, making him a cardinal. All right, so let's move on. All right then. Uh, here's another picture right here, which I'll show you soon. I really like this one. Okay, so let's see how far we can get. Okay, so let's see. I'm on page 64. I'm right here on page. This right here is page 71. So okay, we're gonna keep going because it looks like we're almost done here. So it's getting really good. 1457. On 7 January, the new Cardinal Luis Juan de Milla left Rome as legate to Bologna. A fortnight later, on 19 January, Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia departed to take up the post of legate to Ancona, his first important mission being to restore order in this city which had revolted against papal rule. Okay, so now you got both of the Pope's nephews given jobs as legates to certain places in Italy. So let's see. Luis Juan de Milla to Bologna, which is in Italy, in the Papal States, and it looks like Ancona, another city, no doubt, in the Papal States. And they're both trying to restore papal rule in central Italy. Callixtus III, meanwhile, was preoccupied with the crusade. News arrived that Cardinal Trevisan had successfully established his headquarters at Rhodes and had succeeded in fighting off a Turkish fleet sent to attack Lesbos. I don't know where Lesbos is exactly, but it says where Cardinal Trevisan fought off the Turks in a naval battle, which it's saying here. However, the Pope's attempts to raise much need, much need, much needed funds from Europe's rulers were proving futile. So trying to get more funds was failing. On 16 February, on 16 February, he urged his legate in France, Cardinal Cotivi, to press Charles VII to send the money he had promised, and, in particular, the offerings which had been collected in churches throughout the country, but which the king was refusing to forward. Okay, so he's got one cardinal stationed in France, Cardinal Cotivi, to press Charles VII, that'll be the King of France, Charles VII, to send the money he had promised, in particular the offerings which had been collected in churches throughout the country, but which the king was refusing to forward. So the Pope's asking the King of France, well, asking one of the cardinals to the king to send the money to help with the crusade, but the king is not forwarding the money as promised. So let's see. Promised churches in the country which okay, that's right. I just finished that sentence. Okay. On 27 March, Callixtus III announced his intention to bestow the prestigious papal award of the Golden Rose on the king in a vain attempt to make him change his mind. Okay, so the Pope is willing to give King Charles VII of France an award, which is reward of the Golden Rose. Okay, the Golden Rose, if you can get the king to give him the money to help with the crusade. Hopes that the king would change his mind. The Pope asks for help, but nobody takes any notice, wrote Cardinal Piccolomini. So this one quote right here, this is from Cardinal Piccolomini. The Pope asks for help, but nobody takes any notice. So the Pope is asking for money. Nobody's taking notice. Well, Cardinal Piccolomini, adding that he issues threats, but no one is afraid. So the Pope is now making threats if no money is being provided, but none of these rulers, no doubt the King of France is not even taking this serious. So they're not scared of Callixtus III. On 1 May, soon after Cardinal Rodrigo had returned from his successful mission to Ancona, Callixtus III appointed his nephew as vice-chancellor of the church. Aged just 26, Rodrigo now held one of the most prestigious posts in Rome, worth 6,000 ducats a year, as well as a lucrative income from backhand from backhanders and bribes. So, Rodrigo Borgia, Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia, the future Pope Alexander VI, he is given the highest post as a cardinal, vice chancellor. So, this is someone who aids the Pope by all means. I guess you can say like second in command here of the church. That's always at the Pope's side. So now Rodrigo is now aiding his own uncle by any means necessary. He's got the biggest office in St. Peter's ever. And it says right here, one of the most prestigious posts in Rome, worth 6,000 ducats a year, as well as lucrative income from backhanders and bribes. So you got backhanders and bribes, also giving him money, paying him, whatever. Rodrigo Borgia is now head of the Chancellery, wrote Cardinal Piccolomini. Nothing that he is certainly. Oh, sorry. Let me read that again. This is a quote from Cardinal Piccolomini. Rodrigo Borgia is now head of the Chancellery, wrote Cardinal Piccolomini, noting that he is certainly young, but he is old in judgment. Okay, so it looks like there's some criticism here from Cardinal Piccolomini. Rodrigo is young, age 26, young but old in judgment. Okay, so the Golden Rose, I'm going to read right here in this highlighted paragraph. The Golden Rose, which I just mentioned, that the Pope would give Charles VII of France if he helps with the money. The Golden Rose. The Golden Rose, a spray of fig roses covered with gold leaf and ornamented with sapphires and diamonds, was given out by the Pope every year on the fourth Sunday in Lent as a present for services to the church. It was dispensed with the words, "Receive this rose from our hands, we who take the place of God on earth, although we are not worthy." The rose is the symbol of the church, of Jerusalem triumphant, and of Jerusalem militant. For all faithful Christians, this flower, the most beautiful of all flowers, is a symbol of joy and the crown of saints. The services of the church on the fourth, what does it say? The fourth Sunday of Lent. Someone would get that rose for any services done within the church. And right here, I'm going to read this next paragraph, which I'm going to show you this painting right here. Pope Callixtus III as patron of Siena. Commissioned from Sano di Pietro, 1456, by the Sienese government in gratitude for the Pope's support of its policies. This votive altarpiece contains delightful detail so typical of medieval Sienese painting of pack horses being driven into the city. Siena's cathedral is clearly identifiable by the distinctive black and white inlaid marble cladding on the exterior of its bell tower. Okay, so here we have. This is a picture right here of Pope Callixtus III in the apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And I like this. This is so far like one of my favorite paintings right here. Okay. All right. So it looks like we're like nearly done with chapter 2. Okay. We're almost there. Let's keep going. During this year, the fragile relations between Callixtus III and his erstwhile master, Alfonso I of Naples, deteriorated further. In June, the Pope refused to agree to the nomination of the king's candidate to a Neapolitan bishopric, and he excommunicated Alfonso's ambassador, who had threatened the Pope with the summoning of a council. According to Baggio Giuliano, writing to Duke Francesco Sforza of Milan on 23 June, Callixtus III starkly informed Alfonso, "No, your majesty, that the Pope can depose kings." The king reportedly replied, No, your holiness, that a king, if he wants, can depose the pope. Okay, so now you got an argument between old friends. You got the pope, you got the king. Um, King Alfonso, originally King Alfonso V of Aragon, which is in Spain. Now he's Alfonso I of Naples. And he's already, and the pope has already decided to excommunicate one. Okay, let's say refused to agree to nominate to the nomination of the king's candidate to a Neapolitan bishopric. Okay, let me read this again. In June, the Pope refused to agree to the nomination of the king's candidate. Okay, so the king had a candidate for the Neapolitan bishopric. One of, and so therefore he excommunicated Alfonso's ambassador, who had threatened the Pope with summoning a council. So a bishopric. So one of the king's candidates for a bishopric post in Naples. The Pope refused, and then excommunicates the king's ambassador, who had threatened to depose the Pope, by summoning a council. So now you got two letters back and forth between the, the Pope and the king, and they all say the same thing: "Know, Your Majesty, that the Pope can depose kings." Oh, wait a minute. According to Baggio Gelano, writing to the Duke Francesco Sforza. Okay, so you had someone, but then the Duke Sforza's court. Okay, okay. So there's a letter from someone from Sforza's court. I thought it was a. I thought these were um, letters, from written by the Pope to the king. I guess I wasn't paying attention carefully. Sorry. So you got someone from Sforza's Sforza's court sending a letter to the king, so telling him that the Pope can't depose him. But now you got the king reporting back. Well, I'm sorry. Reporting to the Pope that the king can depose him. Well, the Pope has more power than a monarch, which I believe so. He's a representative of God. He's Christ's vicar on earth, and the Pope's had the power to take away the crowns of monarchs and emperors, which would be the Holy Roman Empire. But then, of course, there have been reports of kings deposing popes too. John the 12th would have been, in one of my previous videos on the dark history of the popes, the Holy Roman Emperor Otto the First had threatened to get rid of John the 12th, but had died because of his immoral scandals before the emperor could even reach Rome. But then later on, I also talked about Pope Benedict the Ninth, who had taken over the church in three separate terms, and which forced the Holy Roman Emperor Henry III to finally get rid of him. So now you got like these threats going on between King Alfonso and Pope Callixtus. Okay. At the same time, rumors were circulating in Rome that the Pope intended to marry his handsome nephew, Pedro Luis, into the Colonna family. This would not only further damage his relationship with King Alfonso, who supported the Orsini, but would also inflame the traditional Colonna Orsini rivalry. So it looks like one of the Pope's nephews wants to marry off one of his nephews to someone within the Colonna family, which would further damage relationships with the king, further damage his relationship with King Alfonso, who supported the Orsini. So Alfonso is supporting the House of Orsini, but would also inflame the traditional Colonna Orsini rivalry in Rome itself. So it would still cause more bloodshed between two families, the Colonnas and the Orsinis. If the Pope's nephew had married off to one member of the Colonna family, even though the king was supporting the the Orsini. This, the situation was exasperated when Callixtus III sent Pedro de Luis, his captain general, to seize several Orsini strongholds that the Pope claimed belonged to the Church. War between the two factions broke out in Rome, and in the middle and in the middle of July, Cardinal Latino Orsini fled the city. On 19 August, the prefect of Rome, Gianantonio Orsini, died, and that same day, with a majority of Borgia allies in the city, including Cardinals di Estotavilli, Barbo, and Piccolomini, Callixtus III appointed his nephew Pedro Luis in Orsini's place. But 2 weeks later, on 1 September, the Milanese ambassador reported that the plans to marry the new prefect to a Colonna had cooled. Pedro Luis fell seriously ill in late October, and on 11 December, the Pope appointed Cardinal Rodrigo to replace him as Captain General of the Church. Okay, now we see Rodrigo getting Captain General of the Church. So now we're seeing Rodrigo Borgia finally giving a military position now, Captain General, as it says so here. All right, I'm going to read this one paragraph right here, and it's on King Charles VII of France. King Charles VII of France, painted between 1445 to 1450 by Jean Fouquet, crowned at Reims in 1429. Charles VII ended the 100 Years' War with England and reduced English possessions in France to just Calais, using his struggle with England as an excuse. He made no contribution to Callixtus III's crusade, going so far as to ban soldiers en route to the crusade from traveling through his realm. Okay, so with the crusade going on in France to just Calais, using his struggle with England as an excuse, he made no contribution to Callixtus III's crusade, going as far as to ban soldiers en route. Okay, here's Charles VII, right here, King Charles VII of France. So the 100 Years' War with England is over. Okay, so I'm going to read this next highlighted paragraph right here. We're getting near the end. The unpopular Catalans. Preoccupied with preparations for the crusade, Callixtus III left the day-to-day business of governing the states of the Church and the city of Rome to his relatives and fellow countrymen. Okay. So Pope is like way too occupied right now with the crusade, and now he's leaving the business of running the papal states to his relatives. There were murders every day and street fights and nothing but Catalans everywhere, complained one chronicler. Many of the key fortresses in the papal states were in the hands of members of the Borgia family. A majority of the galley captains were Catalans, as were Callixtus' secretaries, doctors, treasurers, and even his cooks. The Romans ridiculed Borgia claims to nobility. The Pope's father, they said, was no aristocratic landowner, but rather a peasant laboring in the fields. The meteoric rise of to power of the two handsome Borgia brothers, Pedro Luis, arrogant and energetic, and Rodrigo, the shrewd politician with a silver tongue, made them particularly unpopular. The Pope is blinded by love for his family, it was said. There was there was even a rumor reported by the Milanese ambassador that the Pope has made his nephew Pedro Luis the emperor in Constantinople. This is not a joke, he added, in case Francesco Sforza might misunderstand. So there's already criticisms of the Pope and his family members, especially with his nephews getting cardinal positions like Rodrigo and other offices. And then there's right here at the last part, it says that the Pope made Pedro Luis Emperor of Constantinople. Not true. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah, so the whole thing about making Pedro Luis Emperor of Constantinople, not true. There's no proof to that any of the Borgia members would receive such a huge title in the biggest role of leadership. No way. There's no way that the Pope's nephews, like Pedro Luis, got become Emperor of Constantinople. There's no way. No, the Turks have already got Constantinople under their control. Because because as I read right here, Pedro Luis fell seriously ill in the late October. So that's why Rodrigo was finally given a the Captain General post. Okay, here we go. 1458. Much of the relief of Callixtus III and of Cardinal Rodrigo, Pedro Luis began to recover in January, and he resumed his former position as Captain General of the Church. Okay, so Pedro Luis began to recover. Okay, so the Pope's eldest nephew is already recovering, so now he's back in charge as Captain General. So it looks like Rodrigo was Captain General for a short time. The seriousness of the papal breach with Naples was evident by the beginning of the year. In January, Cardinal Rodrigo offered to negotiate between Callixtus III and King Alfonso, and there were rumors in March that the cardinal would be sent to Naples to talk with the king. By June, however, it was clear that relations had broken down completely. Excuse me. The Duke of Milan was told that Callixtus said that the Holy Church had no peace since the king, Alfonso, acquired the realm, and that he has been a continual thorn in the side to Martin V and Eugenius IV and himself. Yeah, so for a long time, going back to like the aftermath of the Western Schism, the Great Western Schism with Martin V and Eugene IV, that the king's been nothing but trouble with the last two pontiffs. He intends he intends when the king dies to free the papacy from this servitude by disallowing the succession of the king's illegitimate son. Okay, so let me read this again. He intends, when the king dies, to free the papacy from this servitude by disallowing the succession of the king's illegitimate son. So it looks like hopefully once Alfonso dies, the Pope won't make Alfonso's illegitimate son the new king of Naples. So okay. We're near the end there. Okay. Early June brought more immediate concerns when plague broke out in Rome. More plague, or yeah, probably more plague, or around the same. No, that was like the previous year when the Pope was still around. So it looks like plague broke out again. I apologize if I'm getting some things mixed up here. So let me read again. Early June brought more immediate concerns when plague broke out in Rome. All who could all who could do all who could do so now left the city. Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia went to his villa at Tivoli, So Rodrigo has a villa in another Italian town called Tivoli. Uh, while Pic- while Cardinal Piccolomini, who had gout, went to the baths at Viterbo, Callixtus III, however, remained in Rome, pondering the news that King Alfonso was seriously ill with fever. During the summer, Callixtus's fundraising for the crusade continued apace. So it looks like the funds for the crusade were still looks like the funds for the crusade were now coming back in. It looks like says continued apace. He sold the old mint to Rodrigo Borgia for 2,000 ducats. On 24 June, gravediggers discovered an ancient marble sarcophagus containing two wooden coffins, one for an adult and a smaller one for a child. Callixtus removed the silver linings from the coffins, as well as the gold thread, which had been used to embroider the rich fabrics in which the two bodies had been burned, and sold the precious metals, raising a further 1,000 ducats. So graves have been dug. Ancient marble sarcophagus containing two wooden coffins, one for an adult, one for a child. And it looks like there were silver linings from the coffins as well as gold thread. So there were some precious metals, gold and silver, which it says here, silver linings and gold thread. So that was sold off from those coffins and got 1,000 ducats. I I don't know how much in U.S. currency that would be exactly, since ducats are a thing of the past, which is the old currency in the Papal States. And let's see, been used to embroider. It looks like the bodies that were found were burned and have been. Oh, I misspoke. Sorry. I said burned, I meant buried. Sorry. This light above me is like giving so much glare. Which the two bodies have been buried and sold the precious metals. Okay, not burned, buried. My mistake. Sorry. So, more precious metals, gold and silver found on these coffins, sold off, got more money for it. On 27 June, Alfonso I of Naples died, aged 62. The king is dead. He left his kingdom of Aragon to his brother, Juan II, and that of Naples to his illegitimate son, Ferrante. Okay, so now the king's brother, Juan II, is now king of Aragon. And now his illegitimate son, Ferrante, is now the king of Naples. The news reached Rome 2 days later, and the Pope, according to Cardinal Piccolomini, held back neither his tears nor his laughter, weeping with sadness. Okay, so let me read this quote by Cardinal Piccolomini. Neither tears, held back neither his tears nor his laughter, weeping with sadness for the fragility of life, and with joy for the removal of his enemy. So it looks like the Pope didn't cry nor laugh once he heard that his old friend and benefactor finally died. With sadness for the fragility of life, and with joy for the removal of his enemy. So Alfonso is gone, the king is dead. Now, two more kings ruling his realm, Juan II and Ferrante. Long live the kings. On 30 June, he ordered all the cardinals to the Vatican for a consistory at which he distributed the dead king's Aragonese benefices. He gave the lucrative see of Valencia to Cardinal Rodrigo. So now we see Rodrigo Borgia finally getting the same post that his uncle got, the cardinal bishopric. Now he's now made Cardinal Bishop of Valencia in Spain. Later that day, he made plans. Later that day, he made plans to send Pedro Luis Borgia at the head of an army to conquer Naples, and the price of what rose abruptly in anticipation of war. So now you got Pedro Luis Borgia now making plans to send Pedro Luis Borgia at the head of an army to conquer Naples. So now the Pope has got his other nephew ready to conquer Naples. So let's see what happens here. On 12 on 12 July, Callixtus III on 12 July sorry, let me repeat this again. On 12 July, Callixtus III signed a papal bull claiming Naples is a lapsed fief of the church and repudiating Ferrante's succession. So now the Pope wants control of Naples, not giving Ferrante a chance to take the throne. Despite the fact he was illegitimate, he ordered all claimants to the Neapolitan throne to come to Rome. It was widely believed that the Pope intended to make his nephew Pedro Luis the new king. So now we're seeing something. So it looks like the Pope will take the throne away from Ferrante, making Pedro Luis Borgia king of Naples. So let's see what happens in the next paragraph. Because only the Pope can invest whoever gets the Neapolitan throne, whether it's France or Spain or whoever is uh, I'm trying to look for the word. Someone worthy, yeah, the throne. The the Pope was the Pope was reminded of his own morality on 21 July when he suffered a violent stroke. Oh, sorry, let me read this. Not stroke. Sorry, not stroke. The Pope the Pope was reminded of his own morality on 21 July when he suffered a violent attack of gout. Okay, I misspoke. Not stroke. Not a violent stroke, but a violent attack of gout. Sorry. I don't know why I said stroke. So, suffered a violent attack of gout. His condition was serious enough for Cardinal Rodrigo to return from Tivoli on 25 July and pray in St. Peter's for his uncle's life. A week later, the Mantuan the Mantuan ambassador the Mantuan ambassador reported that the Pope had now been ill for 8 days, very weak with fever and deposits in his urine. Yeah, so the Pope's dying. He's near the end. Because remember, Pope Callixtus was elected at age 77, thinking he would not be around much long, but still got a lot done. Get a crusade raised to fight off the Turks. Sold off a lot of stuff that belonged to his predecessor, Nicholas V, even though Nicholas had wanted to get a crusade up and going to get back Constantinople. Callixtus now makes his nephews cardinals. Well, he makes one of them captain general, and the other one a cardinal, which I've already explained. Rodrigo is now cardinal. He's now vice chancellor to his uncle, and you got the Pope's other nephew, that would be Rodrigo's older brother, as captain general of the Vatican. And now the Pope is sick with gout, with fever, and deposits in his urine. I don't know what deposits he's talking about. He cannot digest anything. Food goes in and comes out unchanged. So the Pope is having a hard time trying to eat, cannot digest anything. So he can still, so it looks like, well, okay, let's see. Food goes in and comes out unchanged. So having a tough time trying to eat, but can't digest. Either the Pope has been trying to eat, but then throw, throws it throws up throws it up, or still the still eating and digesting normally, but it's still it still says here he cannot digest. So it looks like he's been eating, but just coughs it out. So far, what it says comes in and out unchanged. Okay. By 30 July, rumors were spreading through Rome that Callixtus III had died. Mobs of citizens vented their anger on any Catalan they could find. Okay. Mobs of citizens vented their anger on any Catalan they could find, while rich merchants, apprehensive of rioting on a larger scale, locked up their goods in padlocks. Oh, padlocked chests. Okay. Now I'm going to read this highlighted part right here. Callixtus III and the death of a king. This is on page 69. The Pope the Pope shows signs of being pleased at the death of the King Alfonso and of being resentful of his behavior while he lived. For the moment the news arrived, he sent a soldier to the house of the king's ambassador with orders to arrest him and take him to Castel But the said ambassador, who had news of the death of the king earlier, unfortunately been informed of the Pope's intentions, and left immediately, leaving most of his possessions, which Callixtus III then seized. So it looks like the Pope has sent a soldier to the king's ambassador with orders to arrest him and to be taken back to Castel Sant'Angelo. But the said ambassador, who had news of the death of the king earlier, unfortunately been informed of the Pope's intentions. Okay, so it looks like this ambassador already knew that the Pope's soldiers were coming. Had left immediately, leaving most of his possessions, which Callixtus III had seized. So the ambassador to the king runs off immediately. So therefore, the Pope takes away his possessions. Callixtus III, like so many who forget the favor, Callixtus III, like so many who forget the favors they have received, failed to remember that he had been born in Alfonso's realm. Yeah, Callixtus III had been born in the same realm as where Alfonso had been ruling in Aragon. Alfonso's realm, and had been much favored by the king, who had appointed him as rival chancellor, and, moreover, that he owed his career in the church to King Alfonso, even his election to the papacy. So, so this is apart from an Italian historian, Francesco Gucci, Gucciardini. Okay, I can't even pronounce that name. Sorry. All right, here we are. Two more pages. Let's keep going. On 31 July, the College of Cardinals met in emergency session and appointed a commission of 4 cardinals: Bessarion di Estativili, Cotivi, and Barbo, together the necessary troops to control the violence that was growing in the city. So with violence breaking out, these cardinals had to send soldiers out to make sure to keep the peace in Rome. Violence that was growing in the city. His Holiness the Pope is gravely ill and has already been pronounced dead 3 times. Okay, so now you got rumors of the Pope already being uh, rumors of the Pope are being spread out throughout the city that he's dead. So far, nothing has been announced. Really, like these rumors have already now spread 3 times. 3. So let's keep reading. Reported the Milanese ambassador on 1 August, adding that since yesterday he has been a little better, but nothing to give any real hope of recovery. Callixtus III, however, still had the strength to grant the cities of Terracina and Bonavento to Pedro Luis, and to announce his intention of creating 5 new cardinals. The Pope's still alive, even though he's ill. He still manages to have strength within him. So all these riots and other violence breaking out in Rome are um, all based on rumors that the Pope was dead, and it's just getting out of control. Okay, here we go. On 4 August, the frail and elderly Pope's condition deteriorated dramatically. Okay, so now we're seeing the Pope's health now really coming down, and he's dying. Determined to retain the power he had acquired during his uncle's papacy, Pedro Luis Borgia planned to hold on to his castles and to use his troops to force the election of a pope favorable to his interests. His brother, however, counseled caution. Rodrigo knew that their future depended on agreement with the cardinals rather than armed opposition. So you got one of the Pope's nephews with an army at the ready if in case of a Pope does not still rule within the Borgia family's favors. But Rodrigo is telling his brother, "Don't act. That could jeopardize everything." Yeah, so Rodrigo is counseling his brother, "Don't with caution." Rodrigo knew, yeah, his brother, however, counseled caution. Rodrigo knew that their future depended on agreement with the cardinals. So there had to be agreement with the cardinals rather than armed opposition, which is what Rodrigo is telling. Pedro Luis therefore surrendered all his fortresses, including Castel Santangelo, in return for a payment of 22,000 ducats, and his troops swore their obedience to the college. Okay, so now Pedro is surrendering his castles, including Castel Santangelo, to the cardinals, and he's given 22,000 ducats, and his troops swore their obedience to the college. So now his troops are now swearing obedience to the college once the Pope dies, their uncle. So Rodrigo is telling him, don't do anything stupid that can hurt us. So Rodrigo is given caution, as I had mentioned, and this is where Pedro surrenders. Okay, now here we go. The following day, the Milanese ambassador reported that His Holiness is gravely ill. Yesterday evening, he received the last rites, and there is no more hope for his life. Indeed, it is only the medicine that is keeping him alive. So the Milanese ambassador is telling him, well, the Milanese ambassador is saying, no doubt to the Duke of Milan, Francesco Sforza, the Pope is dying. He's already been given the final last rites before he dies. The only thing keeping him alive is whatever medicine he's been given. In the dark, in the dark hours, in the dark hours early in the morning of 6 August, Pedro Luis thought thought it Pedro Luis thought it wise to flee Rome. With the assistance of his brother and their ally Cardinal Pietro Barbo. At at Ostia there was no sign of the galley he was expecting, and instead he took refuge in the fortress at Civitavecchia. I'm having a hard time pronouncing some of these Italian words and names. That evening, Callixtus III, the first Borgia Pope, finally died. The Milanese ambassador informed Francesco Sforza that the Pope died today at nightfall. The Catalans have all fled, and those who are harboring them are so detested that it will go badly for them if they are found out before the election of a new Pope. Alfonso Borgia, the first Spanish Pope to Rome and the first Borgia Pope, has died, suffering from gout and other uh, complications to his health, has passed on. And now you got what is it? Catalans, probably I don't know, Catalans, probably Spaniards living in Rome. I don't know what Catalans. I'm thinking Catalonia. That would be Spain. Yeah, but so Catalans means probably Spaniards that are living in Rome. Some have fled, some are hiding, being harbored. Hopefully, nothing goes wrong before a new pope has been elected. Okay. During his short papacy, Callixtus III had shown little enthusiasm for the patronage of art and architecture that appealed to so many other popes. Instead, devoting his energies and the wealth of the church to the crusade against the Turks and the aim of reconquering Constantinople, despite his advanced age and poor health. He left to depository 38 bulky volumes of papal bulls, a testament to the vigor and zeal with which he persuaded his goal. He also succeeded in significantly broadening and deepening the influence of the wider Borgia family. So here we have a picture of Pope Callixtus III. So that ends it right here for chapter 2. Pope Callixtus III has died. So now it says here that Pope had barely done had very little shown very little enthusiasm for patronage of art and architecture, like his other predecessors, devoting his energies and the wealth of the church. Yeah, so Pope was more focused on the Crusades than anything else, especially losing Constantinople. And despite his advanced age and poor health, he left to he left to deposit he left to deposit, deposit he left to sorry he left to posterity 38 bulky volumes of papal bulls. So 38 papal bulls. He had read it in his time, which so that's it. Pope Callixtus III has died. Who was born during the time of the Great Western Schism, helped bring down the schism, especially and then later made cardinal under the last couple of popes. He's now pope. He focused more on the crusade, made his nephews cardinals, and now he's gone. All right. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell beside it. And I'll be seeing you pretty soon in the next video. Take care now. Bye.